Good evening, folks. Welcome to Shallibodhran, and for the first video for 2019, I'd like to do a product review for you, and I want to do it for a maker that has since stopped building, and I believe stopped building a few years ago. Mr. Owen Leonard and Jane Leonard of Belgarth, Bodhrans from the Orkney Isles in Scotland. And from what I remember in my studying on them, they went full-time production in 1998, and more to the point, I think it was 2013 when they stopped doing full-time production. So the company is currently on a hiatus. So if you're going to buy anything out there, it's going to be used, which is what I have. This is actually a drum from 2005, but has been kept in basically new old stock condition. A little bit more, Owen and Jane from Belgarth Bodhrans. Owen was mainly the gentleman who did the construction of the drums, and then Jane did a lot of the artwork on the drums. So a lot of the stuff like the runes that these drums sometimes are known. There's a lot of very runish artwork that's put on some of them, dragon artwork that's put on some of them, and of course things like wood dyeing like there is on this drum. And I don't know if the camera picks it up very, very well. It's a weird sort of watercolory mixture of like a ruddy red and a green, probably like a phthalo green that has faded out to almost a bluey green, tealy sort of thing. It's pretty cool. And the drum that I picked up also happens to have these little strap locks on it, so tried to go all Ronono Snooty stand-up style. And they're actually kind of cool because they have these nice little Celtic knots on there. It's very pretty. What about the drum? This is a 17 and a bit inches. It's not quite clear. Even though I measured it, I kind of settled on with and a bit. And I say and a bit because the drum is 17 and about a 17 and a quarter, but the actual playing surface is about 1.5 inches less than you would expect. And unlike a lot of other drums where up on the rim here, you would have at least a degree of slap over where the rim and the skin kind of meet. This one has a huge no-go zone. So if you're trying to hit some of those hits like that on the top, you can't do those hits very well. You actually have to bounce it right off that bearing edge, and that means that you actually lose a very intricate set of the playing area. So that's a little different. When I was playing around with this, it was quite a bit different to actually sit down and play because you have so much area. You have like a 16-inch drums area on a 17 and some inch drums frame. So it's kind of interesting. The interior, it is a tunable drum, but it is an Allen key tuning system. There is no metal to wood contact apart from the actual screws. And keeping in with the style of Belgarth's more design would be wood on wood. So this thing has a little more of a carpentry sort of feel to it. It feels really arts and crafts. You know, this one in particular, because it has, I don't know if that's wood paint or wood dye that was put into it, watered down or diluted, but it's got all these sort of neat little intricate colors that range from gold all the way to like a ruddy Arizona red or something, or if you're from east coast of Canada, something like the red mud in Prince Edward Island where they grow all the potatoes from. Check out the Stompin' Tom song because that's basically the story there. What I'm using to test for this is I'm using the Los Cabos tipper, which is probably really good for this drum to give it sort of an older sound. I'm using a Steve Moises, I think this is an ME5, ME3, I honestly can't remember, but a dowel tipper and a bundle tipper, the one that I produced myself. As far as binding actually goes, there's very minimal binding on this. In fact, it's just nail head. That's all it is. So it's kind of like my TrHED from Hedwig Shack. There's not much more to it. So that's kind of cool. Other neat thing in here I kind of noticed is that there are these little circle cutouts right here. Here's one of them. I think that was to put strap locks on it, but for whatever reason, the strap locks went there because they look like they've been pre-drilled. So I don't know what originally those were, and if any of you out there who have Belgarth and know what those are, tell me. I'd like to know. That'd be kind of neat to do. What are Belgarths known for? 2 words, warm and creamy. And the warm and creamy sound is, how should I put the sound of it? Well, I might as well just give you some play. And let's hope that the camera can pick it up. I'm going to go out this way so you can get a half-decent view of it. And, well, let's let your ears have a side on it. There is nothing on here to dampen the sound apart from my body. It's just like my Bridget drum. There's no tape, there's no nothing onto it. I wouldn't dare put tape on this. The feel is kind of like playing my Bridget because it has that low end like the Bridget. But if you've ever played the Cormac Byrne series from Hedvig Shack, this feels almost exactly like that with a bit of a difference. And I'll get to that difference after a little bit more play. So let's try a little of the top end stuff. And lastly, a dowel tipper. The wood is poplar, in case you're interested. It's a weird experience playing. Because it's a bigger drum, you get more resonance and it's louder and all that sort of stuff, but it is warmer. In fact, it's very, very much like the Cormac Byrne series. What I also really, really like about it, and just so you can see it, there is a spine line that runs down the middle. It's a very weird experience to play it. The interior is very velvety. For those of you who have ever purchased a coreline series from Hedvig Shack, and you put your hand on the inside and you feel the Edlauer skin, this is what this feels like, except thicker. The outside does not at all feel like the Edlauer skin. It feels harder. It actually feels a lot like my Metloff on the outside, but my Metloff has the feeling on the inside and the outside. it's a neat sound. It has a bit of boxiness to it, but because in the way that the tuning ring sits, it's a little flatter and doesn't press in the same sort of compressed way that you'd find on, say, my RWE that you'd find on most the more modern drums. This is definitely not that. It's flatter. If anything, it's closer to a Waltons or Seamus O'Kane. And that's not a bad thing, actually. Because if there's one thing I've noticed about that, there's a sound, and that sound that I wanted to tell you about, it's a tense sound. And that tense sound is that, I don't know if you can hear it from the mic, but there's the low bass, there's a bit of a muffled middle, and then there's a bit of a ring that rings across in the higher frequencies. And I don't know if you can hear it. It's nothing like the TrHED in that it has an extremely hard attack. The attack on this is very medium, and then over time it would smoothen out. So I understand what this talk about the creaminess is. But because it's a larger drum and you're playing on less surface area, it is deceivingly easy to press in and out and focus your playing on what would feel like otherwise a smaller drum. The control is there without losing that bigger sound. It's a very different in between the great big old sound versus the sort of modern sort of sound. And even just muffling it, you don't quite get that taped sound, but you do with this. It's a very, very weird sound signature. I find it a bit difficult to describe. The sound is squarer. That's the only way I can really describe it. It is warmer and it is squarer. It's very raw sort of feeling. It doesn't have this warm, tuney sort of feeling in the same way that you'd find on a taped drum. This one definitely doesn't have that. The dimensional thickness is 5 inches, and it's extremely comfortable. This is actually the same thickness as my favorite, the drum that I use the most, which is my Finnegan Hill. So to me, this is very natural feeling. It's neat. It has all the space in here, a huge amount of space to fart around if I wanted to do pipe slide or whatever, like if I wanted to get a bit of the Ronan O'Stody sort of sound. Like, you can get that sound in there. It's neat because it's got that hardness to it, and because it's very smooth and it has a sense of warmth to it, and because it has the shape of the bearing edge on the tuning ring, that makes all the difference. It's loud, but it's not harsh. It's not harsh at all. It doesn't have and if I just switch over here to something a little more pointed, a really narrow tipper. It doesn't screech. It doesn't have a sense where it hits like it's loud and it's poignant, but it's not streakishly bangy. It's very weird. It's a very different sort of feel to it. Construction. When I was going through the inspection on arrival, nothing is popping, nothing is shifted. the natural aging and yellowing in the wood looks like it's about what I would expect for a drum of this age. Again, this is 2005, if you can see in there. 2005 for a drum this old, and I don't know if you can really see on the skin, but the skin hasn't been beaten in. If it has been beaten, it's been beaten very little. And from what I understand, the original drum, when it was purchased originally, the person bought it. It kind of was played a few times, and it kind of sat around a bit. Next owner, this is another purchase from Mr. Andy Inns, by the way, who has some stuff right now in the buy and sell, including a Cormac burn. So if you can't get this, so you got to get his Cormac burn. So make sure you fund him on that. And kind of, again, same thing. Played a few times, kind of sat around a bit. This is really interesting. Interesting drum. It also has a bit of a hand drum feel to it. It's cool. It's really cool. There's a lot of character in this. Purchased on one of those moments where I was weak and I've always wanted a Belgarth. I've heard so many good things about the sound profile. And because it's a bit more of a softer and mellower sound, I like that. I very much like that. This is probably going to be the TrHEDs. Probably going to, I won't say replace, but this could probably be my new old school styled session drum for most of what I play. It's nice. I can do the top end stuff on it because it feels like a 16-inch drum, and I can play the old Johnny Ringo stuff. Sort of stuff on it. So it's easy to capture both sides of it. This is an extremely modern sounding drum that isn't modern contemporary constructed at all. It's a mystery. This is a bit of a mystery. So yeah, if you're looking to get a Belgarth, you're going to have to get one used. There's no more currently in stock. Owen and Jane are not taking any more drum orders, and the company is currently on hiatus until someone takes it up from the family. What's left to say about it? The skin, there is one interesting bit of information I found on the skin, and that is the skin goes through a processing treatment where it thickens it. I don't know what that means, so if anyone out there knows what this thickening is, this is sort of the opposite to a lot of Seamus O'Kane's sort of skins where they're scraped very thin by comparison. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? There's a question for you. Thick skin versus thin skin. Something that's like this, which has been thickened, whatever that means, I honestly don't know, versus something that has been scraped thin so that it has a clean and sharp sound. This is not a thin, clean, I mean, it's a clean sound, but it's not sharp in the same way. It's sort of the opposite of that. It's a really squared off. It reminds me so much of my Waltons, which I actually quite loved a lot because it had that very easy to control sound. There you go. This is really cool. I like it. Finishing on the wood is probably hand wax, beeswax or something like that. It's certainly not glossy. It's a satin sort of finish. Doesn't feel sticky at all. The build quality is excellent. It's very much a mystery. And I'm surprised that I was able to find a Belgarth in new old stock. The price was also great. I paid £145 British for it, and it has been well worth it so far. So hopefully this thing's going to make it out to lots of future events in Toronto in the area. So I hope you like this, and if you're lucky enough to find one, please do, and pick one up. It's a unique, interesting drum. If you're looking for something that's like the Cormac Burns series, but you don't want to pay $600 for it, 600 Canadian or 700 Canadian for it, try it out. If you can find one, it's awesome. Pick one up. Especially if you've purchased something like a Mike Vignol's drum, you'll probably really like one of these. If you bought a TrHED and you find that the attack is too hard and you don't have the patience to break the skin in, try to find one of these. It's worth it. So, catch you next time. Bye.